As former President Thabo Mbeki has hit out at a News 24 article claiming interference in the NPA's work during his administration from 1999 and 2008. This article claims that the executive blocked the NPA under the then NDPP head Vusi Pikoli from prosecuting apartheid-era cases, referred to it by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Mbeki says this is not true. Advocate Dumisa Ntsebeza from the African Court on Human Rights and People's Rights joins us with live now to give us some insights on the workings of the TRC in relation to the NPA. A very good morning to you, Advocate Ntsebeza. Thank you for your time. You were commissioned to review the efficacy of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission component of the NPA from 2021, which was made public last month. Your findings in the 2019 Rodriguez judgment suggest that there was political interference in the work of the TRC prosecutions team between 2003 and 2017. Was that an expected outcome?
Well, it will depend on who's asking and who is being asked. First of all, I was in the fortunate position to have been a commissioner in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And I know that as early as 1998, when the commission's work came to an end, there were certain matters which we felt must be referred to the National Public Prosecutor for investigation and where it became necessary for prosecution. Nothing happened. Even at the end of the extended period of the TRC up to 2003, there were firm recommendations that those people who had not received amnesty must be prosecuted, because the deal was that if you want to, if you want to avoid prosecution, you must apply for amnesty. If you don't apply for amnesty, or if you apply for amnesty and you don't get it, then you should be prosecuted. And the question really has been, why has that not happened? Now, very recently, 2 years ago, or just a year ago, I was approached by the NPA to investigate whether there are measures that have been taken by the prosecution authority. What kind of measures are they, for purposes of finding out whether the TRC-related cases were investigated and were prosecuted. And the report that I gave was that the measures were inadequate, and I gave certain recommendations. Now, relevant to the question of interference, that was a question that was asked very pointedly. Were there any interferences by the executive? And my recommendation was that this is a weighty issue. It implicates the Minister of Justice at that time, Minister Mabandla. In a way and in an indirect way, it implicates the President Mbeki, because my assumption is that a minister would not do things which the President is unaware of. From the investigation that I conducted last year, it became clear to me from the little that I got, because I didn't have an investigative unit, I didn't have all the wherewithal to come with a firm, decision as to what happened. But it became clear to me that the question of political interference has now come again for consideration. And that is why, therefore, I recommended, as I did, that what needs to happen is the establishment of a commission of inquiry. We shall have the powers of search and seizure. We shall also have the powers of subpoenaing any witnesses. And it is in that way, I know South Africans are fatigued with this whole commission of inquiry, the next commission of inquiry. But I think as as a step forward, that is what needs to happen now at this stage, at this juncture.
As you say that, Advocate, former President Thabo Mbeki hasn't taken this matter lying down. He's denied these allegations and said that his executive hadn't stopped prosecutors from pursuing the TRC cases. Instead, he countered if investigations were stopped, it was done so by the decision of the NPA. What do you make of that response?
Well, that is exactly the reason. There is already a huge controversy, as to whether or not there was political interference. I'm sure if you ask Vusi Pikoli and if you ask, Advocate Ackerman, who was in the National Prosecuting Authority, and who are very clear as to whether or not there was interference by the executive. In fact, they say so in so many words, that they wanted, to investigate cases, but they were interfered with. In fact, if one looks at the history, I had something here, as early as 2004, there was an attempt, to proceed with the prosecution of those who were implicated in the attempted murder of Reverend Chikane. I'm sure you know of that. Yeah. Now, a senior official of the Department of Justice called the PCLU and interfered with the official there. Saying that they must not proceed with this case. Of course, that official, did not, obey that kind of directive because it was illegal, and but that matter was not proceeded with. So there is clear evidence there, or certainly there is something to work on about the level of executive interference in the prosecution process.
Yes.
And this is something that must be given a thorough investigation, because it will give now even Minister Mabanda, President Mbeki, and everybody else an opportunity at a structured, commission of inquiry to state their case in circumstances where what they say in defense can be interrogated, can be questioned, and can be put to the test. Right now, it's media, he said this, she said this, I did this, I did not do this. And that is all the more the reason why I think that my recommendation for a structured commission of inquiry is justified.
Yeah, I mean, more so as court affidavits by the former National Director of Public Prosecutions, Vusi Pikoli, and the NPA officials state interference from the former president's government, resulting in the NPA now ending the TRC investigations into apartheid crimes, and then, I mean, denying offenders amnesty. That's a big chunk in history insofar as accountability is concerned.
I could not agree with you more. 100%. I'm fully in line with that, and that is why I felt that this was not a matter for Ntsebeza in this one person, or there were two of us. There was also Advocate Kase who was assisting me. This was not the kind of thing that, can be so conclusive as to make the allegations against President Mbeki and Minister Mabanda in particular, stand without them having had an opportunity to meet the allegations that were made by very senior members of the NPA. For instance, Vusi Pikoli, Advocate Ackerman, and other, high-level members of the prosecuting authority. When, allegations are made at that high level, then there is a basis for seeking to clear the air once and for all. And that's what my recommendation was all about.
With that recommendation, what will a structured commission of inquiry look like?
Well, like all commissions of inquiry, it would have to have, terms of reference. And I think, in my opinion, I made the point that the terms of reference must be very clear and direct. It must be to investigate whether there was any prosecution whether there was any interference with the work of the NPA by the executive in the requisite time, in the time indicated, even if it is from 1999. From 1998, which is when the TRC, first TRC handed in their report to the president. Is it true that there was political interference? What form did it take? Were the executives, the Minister of Justice, President Mbeki, were they involved? Now, in fact, now that he says, the interference did not exist, so all the more the reason that the Commission of Inquiry must be established with those kinds of powers.
I suppose, Advocate Ntsebeza, the big question is why? Why pull the plug on the work of the TRC prosecutions team?
Well, you will know that I was head of the investigative unit. I was one of the commissioners, and I was head of the investigative unit. Our powers were limited to the mandate. Our mandate period, or the period of our existence as an investigative unit, and as a commission of inquiry, as a matter of fact, was from 1996 to 1998. Beyond that, whatever we had not completed doing, and we had, in fact, there were a number of cases which, at the close of the 1998 TRC, which we recommended must be for further investigation and for further prosecution. Now you will know that the Amnesty Committee did not close in 1998 together with the other committee, because the Amnesty Committee had to finish its job, and its job was to grant or deny amnesty to those who applied for amnesty. So it was there until the last, amnesty hearing had been completed, and that was about 2003. And then it submitted the 2 volumes. Now, also there, at the end of that period, there were about 300 cases that had been identified for further prosecution, for further investigation and prosecution if it became necessary. And from 2003 to date, nothing has happened. And that is why, therefore, when I was given a brief to look at the measures that have been taken by the NPA in TRC-related cases, it was a long period. And that is why I felt, I personally, even if I felt there was a need for this investigation, it could not be properly done by one person. It needed a very dedicated commission of inquiry whose focus would be, was there any interference? Were there prosecutions and investigations that did not take place? And if that is so, was there any interference by the executive? That would be focused, and that would be provided with the wherewithal to pursue that kind of inquiry. One person like me would not do so.
What do you think a structured commission of inquiry will achieve? Just looking at the State Capture Commission of Inquiry as an example, the recommendations that were put forward there, we're still waiting for some sort of action to take place and some sort of accountability to also take place. What are you hoping for, or what do you foresee in terms of the achievements and the impact that the outcomes of this commission could have?
What would be the alternative, I would ask? Is there alternative that society must just sit down and do nothing, when in fact there is a mechanism that they can utilize? Then it is a question of what society wants done. If it becomes clear, for instance, that commission after commission, comes with recommendations that the executive does not implement, then it lies with the citizenry, with the people in the country to say, wait a minute, all these commissions lead to nothing. They cost us a lot of money. There needs to be something that needs to be done by the community themselves. I cannot speak for the community.
Yeah.
I've stated my own views about what happened, what are the remedial measures that must be taken, and that's all I can do as a single individual. That is why even the work that I did, I felt needed a commission of inquiry, which would have powers of search and seizure, powers of subpoena, and would be assisted by, by being given an investigative unit that would be equipped in a way in which I did not have any.